Hi, aviation operations students. This is the third and final mini lecture for week 3. The topic is ethics. So during this mini lecture, and also as you're doing reading on ethics, I want you to consider what is ethics in business, why you would want to stress it, what the possible outcomes are if you don't stress ethics, and how might business ethics be a factor in your proposed company. So business ethics generally involve trade-offs in cost, quality, sustainability, control over partners, and social responsibility. So an example of this is the Maquiadoro, a factory in Mexico run by a foreign company and exporting its products to the country of that company. So many products in the United States are made by American countries in Mexico, where they do not have to provide as high a level of safe working conditions for the employees, and they do not have to follow the same rules to prevent pollution of water and ground. They make the products there. The products are brought back across the border and sold here in the United States. And there are definitely some ethical issues in that, though it does make it cheaper and easier to do. So one thing to think about is company culture, either in a company that you go to work for, where you are in school, or the business idea that you're considering. Can you stand up if you see something wrong? And I would certainly hope that in my class, if you felt that something was wrong, you could stop and let me know about that. So here's an example in aviation. The Airline Pilots Association International has a code of ethics. And the first line is that an airline pilot will keep uppermost in their mind that the safety, comfort, and well-being of the passengers who entrust their lives to them are the pilot's first and greatest responsibility. It goes on to provide some subpoints that tells you how to do this, and then also adds some other ethical concerns below that. So you can read more about that at this website. So some of the ethics that should be considered in contemporary business is competing fairly and honestly, communicating truthfully, being transparent, not causing harm to others, and that may be employees, partners, customers, other companies, stakeholders or investors, or the community itself. Factors to think about: cultural differences. There will be different priorities and those trade-offs in urban versus rural, in a northern state versus a southern state. So those are things to think about: the community both in which you operate and the community of your customers, which may not be the same. Knowledge is important. Understanding what's important to the community that you work with, and not just avoiding potential problems, but planning for them and making sure that you do avoid them, not counting on luck. Organizational behavior, creating a culture that rewards ethical behavior through a code of conduct, ethics or policies, a whistleblowing policy, and focusing on the causes that are important to you, your industry, and also your customers and community. And the other thing is looking at causes of symptoms, not blaming. The important thing when something goes wrong is not saying, well, Joe didn't do it right. It's to figure out why Joe didn't do it right. Did he not see a sign? Did he not remember? Has he not been trained in the policy? Instead of blaming Joe, even if Joe is at fault, look at the causes. Some of the policies that you see at Summit Aviation have been written because mistakes that either instructors or students have made. So rather than blaming the individual person, the focus is on finding those causes. You may have things in your checklist, or you may sometimes have notes inside the airplane to remind you of things. And an ethical dilemma, a situation in where more than one side of an issue can be supported with valid arguments. And that is something we see a lot of lately. So we have to look at ways to resolve it. And some of the approaches are justice, to be treating people fairly and equally. Utilitarian, delivering the most good to the most people, or at least doing the least harm. Individual rights, respecting the rights of individuals to choose. Individual responsibilities, and you need to remember that with rights come responsibilities, to focus on the ethical duties of those involved. The common good, emphasizing benefiting the community as a whole. And again, that community could be the aviation community at the airfield you're at. It could be the community surrounding the airfield. It could be your customers wherever they are. You're going to have to define that in order to define what the common good will be. And virtue, emphasizing traits such as integrity and compassion. So while we'll not have an in-class discussion on that, again, this is something I would like you to consider. How can you balance business needs such as profit with the moral need to avoid competing unethically? What are some of the things that you can do? And what are some of the downsides if you chose not to do those? So this brings us to the concept of corporate social responsibility. Considering philanthropy versus strategic corporate responsibility. Philanthropy is simply giving money or other resources to organizations without necessarily having any kind of a tie into your own business. And that may be something that you can do, but you can also tie in your donations of time and resources to those that benefit your community. So Summit Aviation, some of the leaders at Summit Aviation have been impacted by cancer. So they chose to give back to the cancer community through the Eagle Mount Cancer Survivor Flight Camp. It is a wonderful activity that takes young cancer survivors, teens and young adults, and allows them the opportunity to go through a week of flight training and actually be able to fly down to Idaho and experience what it's like to fly across Yellowstone. That meets both the individual needs of the leaders at Summit who find this to be a cause that is dear to their hearts, and at the same time, it generates a lot of positive media for Summit Aviation, including some national media at this point. Another is free introductory flight donations to a variety of local organizations. There's a benefit in the fact that Summit Aviation is called out at the events associated with them. As a matter of fact, you win this at roller derby by participating in a paper airplane competition. So it does a couple things. It allows Summit being seen to support local organizations. It gets Summit's name out there, and it gets somebody who's potentially interested in flight into an aircraft, and maybe they want to pursue a pilot's license. And this is now they know that this is a place where they can do that. So consider the point, is it wrong to help your business and society at the same time? Strategic corporate social responsibility means that this doesn't happen by accident. You plan it. And again, something to consider. So there are multiple approaches. One of them is very minimalist. Pay your taxes, obey the law. Don't do anything that's going to have you run afoul of the concept of ethics. Cynical, making it a marketing ploy, giving money to unrelated causes to distract from self-centered behavior or an incident that has occurred. And especially if it's an incident that has occurred, you're put in a defensive position, making donations when you're shamed or forced to. And there are a lot of stories in the news lately of individuals and organizations that are making donations because they've been caught out at something. Or being proactive, strategically investing in areas that are aligned with the company's vision. So how does that fit with Summit's philanthropy? They provide philanthropy that also provides positive media for Summit and connects potential customers with the organization. So again, when you consider strategic corporate social responsibility, how might it change your mission for your business? How would you manage this possibly instead of just through philanthropy, through code or policy? So we generally have a two-tiered approach. The first is to take responsibility for consequences of your business's actions, limit the negative impact of operations, first do no harm, And it's critical for a business in the current environment and a definite basic business expectation in this community. You don't necessarily have to put a lot of resources into it, but as you're developing your business, if you think about things that you can do that are good for the environment, good for the community, at least doing things in a positive way, timing your morning flights so that you're not waking people up by blasting over their houses at 5 in the morning. There's a lot of ways that you can be a positive member in the community. And then the second, to move beyond do no harm. Environmental, conserve resources, reduce pollution, spend more to buy quality, long-lasting products, and sustainability both in an environmental term and in term of your business. Another approach in this is buying American made. Consumers, thinking that they have right to safe products and services, to be informed, to choose what and where to buy, and to be heard. Do you have a way for your customers to reach out to you if they're concerned? And your employees as well, a right to equal pay, to a safe work environment, and for opportunities for growth. So all of these are ways in which you can proactively provide corporate social responsibility. Certainly as a beginning business, you're not going to do all of these things at the same time, but you can also consider them as you're developing your business to build some of these things into your structure and your policies and procedures. So again, if we were in class, we would divide up and do this, but I'd ask you to think about all the things that we've discussed and I've asked you to consider so far in this presentation, and we'll be doing a homework assignment on that next week. But this week's homework, again, to remind you that homework number 2, due on the 29th, is to consider the class expectations list that you as a class have approved by consensus, and to look at some of the common management errors on slide 18 of the first day 1 mini lecture. To consider 3 standard operating procedures. And so you're going to list a common management error, and you're going to list a rule that you could use in your business that could help you and your staff avoid those errors. So that's the first part of the assignment, due Friday. By Sunday, you should post a response to at least 3 other posts. Select 1 or more of their standard operating procedures and comment on whether you think that the procedure will help prevent the error or make a suggestion on how the procedure could be improved. Again, we're doing this through constructive criticism. So you will either compliment them on the procedure or say that you think there might be an issue with it and you will offer a solution. You want to do this in a friendly manner rather than an oppositional one. And this comes from definitions.net. So make sure you complete that by Sunday. For next week, think about the consider items, as there will be a related assignment on business ethics. That completes the end of section 2 and the end of week 3. So again, if you have any questions or need any clarifications on anything in the presentations, on the homework assignments, or anything else, please be sure to reach out to me. Otherwise, have a good week. I hope you have a little fun with these assignments, and I look forward to connecting with you next week.